What is going on, my fellow Lisan Al Gaibs? Welcome back to the Nerdwide
What?
podcast. This is episode 147.
What the hell just happened?
I am your Muad'Dib host, Tyler Haynes, with my good friend and co-host, Chris Rivers.
I think there's something in your throat.
It's just, it's been a Dune week, man. Let me tell you, not traumatic, a spiritual, transformative experience, and I really cannot wait to talk about it once we finish Agent Carter season 2. But let me tell you that it's spoiler alert, it's a phenomenal movie, and I cannot wait to talk about it. So before we get to that, though, we watched Agent Carter season 2, episodes 1 and 2. Went some places I didn't think we were going to go, and I'm okay with. Because there's a nice little Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Kind of callback kind of thing. And listen, I know if you're watching on video, there's an issue here. Yes, my Dune poster is back here. But
Unbelievable.
I forgot to tell you about this. So, oops.
Tyler's like, yeah, we're in the middle of talking about Agent Carter, but look, there's Dune.
Hey, Dune. I saw this in the side eye here. So, Walmart, we talked about this last year when Best Buy said they're not doing physical copies anymore, physical media. And we were like, okay, so where are all the steelbooks going? They are going to Walmart. They're also having a phenomenal sale right now. So everyone check your Walmart for steelbooks. I got Man of Steel, $15. One of the only steelbooks I don't have. Of the DCEU, but as you could tell, there are some issues. I mean, look at this little big defect here. You got something there. It doesn't close all the way because of all that. So I sent an email back. I said, whoa, this is very damaged. And so they sent one the next day that was perfectly fine. But the problem I have is they advertise, Blu-ray, DVD, and digital.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, let me,
it's just Blu-ray, right?
What's that date say? I don't know if you can see it that well.
November the 13th of 2019. Is that right?
2015.
Okay, it was kind of blurry.
So I'm like, you can't really advertise that, but whatever. I got a steelbook for $15 of one of the arguably one of the best DCEU movies, along with Oppenheimer steelbook. So.
Much better movie.
That comes in Tuesday. I was like, I can't. It's one of those movies you have to own.
The good news is that the digital code for that's still going to be good.
Yes. Well, and we already had the digital code, so I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. I don't know. But you guys didn't come here to hear about all that. We've got a lot to talk about, some fun things to talk about. No news this week, nothing really popped or came out. I expect next week we should get some good stuff, but not a lot of good TV coming out either this week. So I think with the Oscars ramping up, we should get some news about some things, but we're still hitting the effects of the strike right now. Chris, have you been watching anything TV-wise, though?
I've stayed up to speed on some of the new shows coming back, but that's it. Nothing outside of the norm.
That's how we've been with Ghost. It's the S words. I see it with me. And Love Is Blind, and of course The Bachelor, which I still am winning Bachelor Fantasy Draft, which put a pin in it because we're gonna come back to a fantasy draft.
Yeah,
that you could potentially play along with, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get into it. Agent Carter, Season 2, Episode 1 and 2, that aired back-to-back, apparently. I didn't realize that until I was looking up recaps for it, and a lot of them had on the same page. So, we are going to diskingdom.com. So, at first, I was like, this is kind of weird. But it's DIS with a Disney little logo kind of thing for the I, and then King, and it's got a little Mickey Mouse thing, and then Dumb. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So... this is by Paul Washington, all the way January 20th, 2016. Let's see. Opening in similar fashion to the opening episode of the previous season, a busy New York street coming into view, we see a familiar outfit, that of who we think is Peggy. This is not the case as we enter a bank, which is now being held up by this character who turns out to be Season 1's big bad Dottie Underwood, a Russian spy who is a product of the Black Widow Project, asking for key box 143. Entering the vault, we learn that she was expected as our heroine SSR agent Carter was waiting for her, as well as her boss, the new chief, Jack Thompson. After the fight between the two ladies, Underwood is arrested, which after Carter knocks her out with a bag of coins. Very funny. Moving to Los Angeles, we find the year is now 1947. Season 1 was in 46. And we find Agent Souza is now based in the city of Los Angeles and is on the scene of a suspected murder linked to a serial killer that had dumped his victims in the same lake that the body was found in. It's the hottest day of the year and the lake is frozen over, as well as a victim is frozen in a block of ice. Here is where we meet Detective Andrew Henry, which I instantly was like, there's something up here. Like, I've just been bred that way, I guess. Back in New York, Peggy is interrogating Dottie, showing her what was found in box 143, which was a lapel pin. While the interrogation is happening, Thompson takes a phone call from Souza in LA, confirming that he is the chief of the SSR on the West Coast. Due to the division though the division is fairly new, just 6 months old in fact, they are in need and some help from the original team back in New York City. At first, Thompson's reluctant to help until he gets the idea to send Peggy. Without telling Souza his idea, he says he will send somebody. He actually said he'll send a, what did he say? He said like an agent. But it was very generic and broad. He pulls Peggy, he said, I'll send one of my best guys. That's what it was.
Yeah.
He pulls Peggy out of the interrogation and orders her to go to LA, despite her protest that she needs to continue pressing Dottie. When Peggy arrives in LA, an old friend, Edwin Jarvis, is awaiting her. We also meet a new member of the Stark family, Bernard the Flamingo. Dude, I think I laughed out loud when I saw that. And Jarvis, that actor is just really great with him.
Yeah.
On the way to dropping off Peggy at her destination, Jarvis explains that LA is a foreign concept to someone like Peggy. He drops her off at the Auburn Theatrical School. Peggy enters to find two tap dancers auditioning for Rose, who is a former telephone exchange operator at the SSR in New York. She enters the offices to find a surprised Souza who doesn't know it was Peggy that Thompson had sent. It also points to the fact that a romantic relationship was starting to develop between the two prior to Souza moving to LA, with Carter claiming to have called him multiple times since he moved, but she has had no response from him. Detective Henry now joins them with all the files on a serial killer case, but Peggy has put two and two together and wonders whether it's the killer or whether the frozen lake has something to do with it. They visit the medical team who have been examining or trying to the body, but explains the body is frozen through, but that it had all the signatures of Lady of the Lake killer, but could not tell if the body was frozen in the lake or whether the lake froze because of the body. It turns out he turns off the lights to show that the body is actually glowing. At that point, I'd be like, whoa, we're radioactive here. I'm out. I mean, give me some lead here. Yeah. SSR lab tech Samberly, who complains about being underappreciated but explains this was likely caused by a particle accelerator, is there, and there's only one in California that belongs to Isodyne Energy. Peggy, Sousa, and Jarvis paid them a visit, with Peggy infiltrating the building by excusing herself to the ladies' room. When Peggy enters the building, she jumps into a scientist asking her if she wants to be thunderstruck. We find this is actually his test to make the perfect wine. I really, really, really like this guy, by the way. So far. I mean, he's so far. Let's see. He identifies the body as Jane Scott, a particle physicist who is rumored to have a close relationship with the owner of Isodyne Energy, Calvin Chadwick. It is at this point the receptionist finds Peggy and kicks her out. The scientist introduces himself formally to Peggy as Dr. Jason Wilkes and gives her his number, introducing him as a love rival to Sousa for Peggy. Detective Henry is loath to go after Chadwick as he is running for Senate, but Peggy and Sousa decide to otherwise. Jarvis then takes Peggy to the Stark residence where Bernard is walking free in the grounds. It is where we finally meet the much talked about Mrs. Jarvis, Anna. Completely different to Edwin's personality, she kisses him passionately and then sends him on his way. She has picked out several outfits for Peggy to wear while she is undercover at the racetrack where they will find Chadwick. I love the wife. She is so much fun.
Yeah, she even makes Peggy a garter to hold a pistol.
Yes, it's just the small stuff like that's just great. Like, you understand why the people behind our favorite spouses and things like that. I just love it. Peggy and Jarvis arrive at the track where Chadwick and his wife, the actress Whitney Frost, are. They approach the couple, with Jarvis occupying Frost with talk of a role in a film at Stark Pictures, while Peggy talks up Chadwick's bid for Senate, before mentioning her friend Jade Scott. At this, Chadwick balks as Peggy introduces herself as an SSR agent. She explains that Jane is dead before Chadwick says he will cooperate if she gets the correct clearance. They return to the office to explain what they had found. Then they head to see where the autopsy had been complete, but finds that the doctor was also frozen, and then falls smashing into pieces. Back in New York, Thompson has continued to interrogate Dottie, but finds she has been leading him after her unlocking her cuffs. She flips the table, pins Thompson to the floor with it, only being saved by the fellow agents. Jarvis has brought Wilkes in, who says he has to test samples to see what's caused this. Meanwhile, as Henry tries to drink water from the fountain, the water freezes.
Thompson's not very good, is he?
No, and it's real evident. This poor guy.
And she calls him on it later. I don't know if it was in one of the... I can't remember which episode, because I watched 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's an episode where she calls him out on it.
Good, because he's not done so hot. The autopsy says that she died from radiation poisoning that was made to look like the lady in the lake killer. They decipher that it must have been Henry that caused the death. Henry takes Wilkes hostage and drives him off with him after knocking Jarvis out. Meanwhile, Thompson is once again pushing Dottie, who will hand over the details they need as long as she is only sent to prison. Bursting in on the scene is the FBI, led by Vernon Masters. Wonderful. Nice little twist here at the end about this too. And they cart Dottie off. Carter, Sousa, and Jarvis here followed Henry and find his car frozen. Peggy leaves Jarvis behind to watch the car and instruct the police that when they arrive, while her and Sousa to find the pair. They find them, Henry explaining that he didn't kill Jane, but was paid to clean up after someone. He made it look like the serial killer has lost all his resources and wanted to solve the case. Shots are fired and Wilkes escapes, running straight into Peggy, who tells him to hide. Henry gets a jump on Sousa, but due to what happened to his gun, it freezes. They tell him they can help, but he says they won't let them. An officer shoots, and Henry shatters into pieces. Thompson and Masters sharing a drink. We learn they are family friends, with Masters getting Thompson his role at the SSR after he left the Special Forces. He also warns Thompson that the SSR was a wartime agency and they are no longer at war, offering him a role elsewhere. Peggy talks to Wilkes, apologizing for putting him in harm's way, wondering if he is contaminated, but he confirms that it would have to be through blood rather than touch. He asks her out, but she, of course, says no. Back in the office, one of the case is staying open, so Peggy will be staying in California. She asks Sousa to go for a drink, but he actually turns her down. She stays in the office while he leaves and meets another woman outside. Jarvis is also waiting for Peggy down below the window. We end on a bit of a revelation, Wilkes staring at a containment unit holding a black mass that may be recognizable to fans of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And recognizable it was. Because immediately I was like, wait, is that? And sure enough, and here we are. So,
yep. Zero matter.
Oh, God, I love the shows connecting. It's what they used to do so well.
And again, you've asked yourself this numerous times. Why did you not watch this the first go around?
Correct. And I've got no answer. I got no excuse. I really have no excuse anymore. The second episode picks up the story that was set up in the first episode, but delves deeper and sets the story for the rest of the show. Early on, we meet Sousa's new LA girlfriend, played by the Tudors and Once Upon a Time actress Sarah Boguer. Her name is Violet. Things are a bit further on than what you expect, though, as Sousa planning to ask her to marry him. That's not to say he still doesn't have feelings for Peggy, but something that Rose notes early on in this episode. We also learn that the effects of what happened in Season 1, Jarvis has decided to learn how to look after himself if he were to be involved in more incidents, as he puts it. Peggy tries to prove that maybe he isn't as advanced in the various martial arts that he has been learning as he thought, but Jarvis actually succeeds in taking Peggy down. Dr. Wilkes is back again. While not completely trustworthy, seems willing to help the SSR, but could this be due to a distraction to Peggy? Their relationship takes another step onwards as Peggy gives into her feelings when meeting Wilkes in to get information. Another couple of return characters from episode 1 are Calvin Chadwick, who we find is reporting to a council, which this author goes, could this be our first look at the Magia? and his wife, Whitney Frost. The council believe the work being done on the dark matter we saw at the end of episode 1 is not progressing the way they'd prefer and are going to terminate the program. While Calvin argues he eventually gives in, as they say his run for the Senate is more important than this. It isn't until he informs his wife that things start taking a turn, she seems far more upset regarding the change of plan. Carter and Wilkes decide to infiltrate Isidine after being chased by some of the council's thugs, learning that everything is being cleared out, only to find Frost there, who attacks Wilkes while he has the dark matter. Wilkes dropping the case and causes it to escape and sucks Wilkes in. Could this be the same place as Simmons in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Well, Frost doesn't, but is affected in a way we are yet to learn about. A very clever introduction to the episode was one of Howard Stark's leisure cars set up for nights out with his lady friends, but also with a beacon in case he gets separated from the car so Jarvis can pick it up.
That was a great scene.
Oh, wonderful. And she was like, well, why would he? Oh, it's good. I loved it, man. Like, especially the tent that just, if he needed privacy, just flips the switch. Beautiful.
The seat flies back. Yeah. She's like, is that a mirror?
Yeah, those throwaway lines are just great with her. Let's see. In this episode, Peggy borrows this car. After they are attacked, she triggers the beacon so Jarvis can get Sousa to find where she is. After leaving Stark's car, they still one of the thugs' cars and found an Easter egg will likely play in the episodes, which is a pin similar to the one Dottie has found last episode. It ends with the episode with Frost terrified in a room while her husband's knocking on the door, and she's got like a little gash on her forehead with the zero meter in it. So, what could that mean? And why is she so... She obviously just wants to get rich, is where I'm saying right now, because she clearly wants the money for that.
There's more.
No, of course there's always more.
But you know, part of the thing, right, with the zero matter is that it keeps her young.
Mm-hmm.
So, being an actress, she wants to.
It's the Rita Farr effect from Doom Patrol.
Yeah, you know, I get it.
Yeah,
but
you know.
Anyway,
like I said earlier, no big news for TV or movies really this week, but we do have a new release this week coming up, March 4th through March 10th. It's called Wednesday, March 6th. New show on Netflix called Super Sex. I don't know what it's about, but it sounds like it's got superheroes in it and sex. So
is this like the deal from The Boys?
Yeah, with, is it a documentary series where they break down those scenes?
Is it what was the name of it? Hero-gasm?
Hero. See, I mean, it could be. I mean, I'm gonna find out Wednesday, March 6th. Oh man,
people are gonna find out March 6th.
Yeah, that's you never know.
All right. Well, next up, of course, is our movie section. Since we don't really have anything to tell you guys about, no, we've actually got something. So I watched this week The Big Sleep, Bogey and Bacall.
The Big Sleep. That sounds familiar to me.
Very good movie. Enjoyed it. It's a classic. I think, I want to get my rating right here. So I'll pull up my diary. 4.5 stars out of 5. Pretty good movie. Now, Tyler, you watched something this week that you have been just like chomping at the bit to talk about.
I can't wait. Listen, let me go to my text messages here.
And it has to do with that poster behind you.
Let's see. Where is it? Let's see. Okay. So I sent you Friday morning when I got up. 6:47.
Very disturbing picture.
You know. So this week I watched the first Dune. I rewatched it Thursday morning. Of course, I finished the Dune book this week as well. So I had that going for me. I actually finished it after the movie.
So you've read the entire story. You know
Correct.
where all this is going.
Yes. Well, for the most part. So I try my best to get caught up on it. I went into the theater with one chapter left of the book. So the movie spoiled what for me, but then I read what the book had with it. Not a whole lot of changes, which was really cool. For that last little scene, though. But Dune Part 2, my official review, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. This is up there. I gave it a night to think about it before I made, crazy things and put crazy things on social media because, recency biases and things like that. But I woke up still thinking about it, still talking about it, and I love this movie. This is a perfect 5 out of 5. If I could give it 6 out of 5, I would. But there are very few movies for me that are 5 out of 5, and this is in my top 3. I still want to say Avengers Endgame is my number 1 favorite movie, with this a very, 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 very close second. The cinematography was phenomenal. The acting was great. The story was very cool, and all on I think like $190 million budget.
It's a big ensemble cast.
Yes. I mean, we had Austin Butler, of course, Timothy Chalamet, Batista, Josh Brolin. We had Zendaya, and then Taylor-Joy. We had Christopher Walken. I know I'm forgetting people, but this movie was by far like just one of the best experiences I've ever had. Of course, we watched it in IMAX, like how it's meant to be seen, and a full packed theater. Like there was not an empty seat in the whole thing, and it was very good. The story was wonderful. Like it, for the most part, stayed pretty 1-to-1 for the book. They did change some things, which I'm curious to see how they do going forward with it, because they did Dennis V. I'm not going to try and butcher his last name. Villeneuve, I think is how you pronounce it. Said he is writing the script for the third one, but he is going to take his time. He said he kind of rushed the second one, and I don't see it. Like, I don't see this at all. But dude, I'm telling you, the shots, the action, the sound design, like it's going to win everything. There's no way it does not sweep the Oscars next year. And I'm really excited because I know it's going to be put up for the Oscars because Dune Part 1 was up for 2022's, which just means that you're going to have to watch them, which makes me really excited. But I text you Friday morning after waking up and still just on a high over it. I said, hey, boss, just to let you know, Dune Part 2 will be up for Best Picture next year. 5 out of 5 movie, absolutely no notes. And I still stick by it. Like, it's to the point that I get paid on Friday, and I'm probably going to go watch it again this next weekend by myself just to see it again. I miss it so much, and this film was absolutely phenomenal, and I want everybody to watch it in theaters, in IMAX, whatever you got to do, just so they go ahead and greenlight the third one, which will be the Dune Messiah. And
so we need to touch on one thing here that's very important. You said you may go see it by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because your wife won't go see these.
Correct.
She also hasn't watched the Elvis movie yet.
That's also correct.
I'm very disappointed.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
The Sex Bucket. I know we talked about that a couple episodes as well. Only in AMC theaters. We don't have any one of those near here, so wasn't able to. I was going to get the tin popcorn bucket and then the cup. I asked for the cup because I was just like, I'll use a cup more than I'll use a popcorn bucket. And they said, you have to buy it as part of the combo. I said, okay, how much is the combo? He said $32 and some change. I said, okay, I'll just take a small drink, please. And because I couldn't justify that. Unfortunately, I couldn't.
The small drink is still...
It was still
like
$8.
$7.
$8. And I am just... movie theaters, and I get it, but if they want movie theaters to keep being around, they're going to have to restructure stuff. That's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
But there is, so watch it. If you watch the trailer for this film, there is a black and white scene of with Austin Butler, who plays Frade Routha. It's Fade. It's Frade Routha, who's the nephew to one of the big bads. And that black and white scene, I was very curious to see how they're going to do it. So the reason it's in black and white is because that planet has a black sun, and so everything's in black and white, which is very well done. Because when they're walking through the hallway, there's color. But oh man, like that scene blew me away, and there were so many cool scenes. There is a speech scene about 3/4 into the movie that was like word for word from the book. And I looked over to my buddy Steven, who introduced me to all this, who got me the book, who got me the ebook, and made me go watch the first one with him. And I can't thank him enough because it's oh god, it's so good. But like 1-to-1, and I looked over, and we both said, "Let's effing go" at the same time because it was like the emotion. I had chill bumps that whole scene. And like full body, and it's just wonderful, man. Everyone needs to go see this movie. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life, and it's been 4 days since I've seen it, and I'm still very high on it. And I understand why it's so rated so high. And I am telling you, it's going to win way more awards than the first one did. And what cracks me up is like because all the box office numbers are coming out now, and the opening night for Dune Part 1 had a $40 million income just for night one, which is still good. The second one had $80.2 million for the opening night. I'm just like, that's Marvel numbers. And especially for a sci-fi movie like this, which is not very mainstream, I would say. But for it to put that kind of numbers up, and then I think it had, just for the U.S. alone, it's like $180 million this week for the weekend. I'm just like, oh, this is they're doing. You know what? Let me look it up because I don't want to say incorrect numbers. Box office Dune Part 2. There it is. So Joel, where are we at? Conquers the domestic. Okay, so domestic was 81.5 million. So that was worldwide was 80 million that first night. Where is it worldwide? All right, so here we go. Number one spot over the weekend, amassing a worldwide total of $178 million. For 3 days is not bad.
No, that's not bad. That's not bad for a whole run.
Right. What was I going to say? Dune Part 2 budget. Yeah, the budget was $190 million, so they've already made their money back. Or close to it.
There's an article came out. I think this is on Screen Rant, and touches on Timothée Chalamet. Of course, is the star of the Dune franchise, in which it came out that Leonardo DiCaprio advised him never do a superhero movie.
Yes.
And so far, he's stuck to it. What do you think of that? Do you think that is it wise?
I think Tom Holland and Zendaya will convince him otherwise. Honestly, Batista as well. Josh Brolin, but I know. So him and Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya are real close friends, and so is Tom Hiddleston. Why can't I think of Spider-Man's name? Tom Holland. So they're all very good friends together, and like they hang out all the time. I think honestly that he'll convince them to do it, especially if a role comes up. And
what he said in the article, he said the film that made him want to become an actor was The Dark Knight.
Right. So I mean, put him as Batman Beyond. Oh my God, just do it. Oh man, because Timothée Chalamet is so good. I could see him being a Terry McGinnis. Oh, God, I want to go watch that movie again.
So,
but yeah, that's all I watched this week.
I was gonna say, have you covered everything? Yeah. Are we good?
Oh man.
So the movie that we watched for the show this week, the Oscar-nominated Best Picture, Anatomy of a Fall. 152 minutes long. Look, guys, we got to do something about the lengths of these movies.
Correct. Good Lord.
And I think every Oscar-nominated film we've watched has been a minimum like 2 hours and 15 minutes. And wasn't one about 3 hours?
Oppenheimer.
Yeah. So this had a $6.7 million budget in US dollars and made $31.1 million.
So, positive income there.
4 times the money. Here's the plot, and then we'll get into our thoughts of it. In an isolated mountain chalet near Grenoble, novelist Sandra Voiter is forced to reschedule her interview with a female student as her husband, university lecturer Samuel Mileski, plays music loudly in his attic. Their visually impaired son Daniel returns from a walk with his guide dog Snoop to find Samuel dead from an apparent fall from the open attic window. We never see the husband before we see his body on the ground, which is interesting. Sandra insists that the fall must have been accidental. Her old friend and lawyer Vincent suggests the possibility of suicide, while Sandra recalls her husband's attempt to overdose on aspirin 6 months earlier after going off of antidepressants. So Tyler, you're an RN.
Terrible way. Just don't do that. That's a terrible way to, don't do aspirin.
First question I had was, how successful would that be?
I mean, too much of anything will kill you, but I mean, you're going to bleed more than anything, and it's smart.
If you survive, you're probably going to have liver damage.
Correct, and that's a whole other host of issues. So,
and he survives and apparently is fine.
Yeah, so must not have been enough.
10 aspirin apparently.
Yeah.
Daniel's conflicting accounts of what happened shortly before his father's death, combined with revelations Samuel sustained a head wound before his body hit the ground, and an audio recording of a fight Samuel and Sandra had a day before, prompt Sandra's indictment on charges of homicide. During the trial, Sandra's defense team claims Samuel fell from the attic window and hit his head on a shed below, while the prosecution posits Sandra hit him with a blunt object and pushed him from the third-floor balcony. During a courtroom argument with Samuel's psychiatrist, Sandra admits her resentment towards Samuel due to his partial responsibility for the accident that led to Daniel's impaired vision, which is normal.
Right.
You would have some resentment. I want to talk real quick here about the courtroom scene. It's not what we're used to in America.
Yeah, because this is Germany.
Was it Germany or France or?
Yeah, that was a European. Nothing we're used to here.
No, because they had. She's sitting over with her lawyers, and the witnesses were coming up to a podium. And while the witness is standing there being questioned, they can also turn to her and ask her questions, and she has to answer. Mm-hmm. Over here we have this thing called the Fifth Amendment that says if you're in fear of incriminating yourself, you don't have to testify at all. But she apparently didn't have a choice. So that was interesting. In the recorded fight, Samuel accuses Sandra of plagiarism, infidelity, and exerting control over his life before their protracted argument turns physically violent. The prosecution claims all the violence came from Sandra. She counters that while she had slapped Samuel, the rest of the violence heard was her husband beating on himself. After Sandra admits to an affair with a woman the year before Samuel's death, the prosecution argues Samuel's loud music indicated jealousy over Sandra's flirting with the interviewer, leading to a physical confrontation later. The prosecutor also notes her pattern of writing personal conflicts into her stories and how murdering her husband mirrors a minor character's thoughts from her most recent novel. In turn, Sandra protests that one recording does not represent the nature of their relationship, nor do the words of a character in a novel reflect her own inclinations. I was surprised at this point in the story, and again, maybe it's just the difference in societies in different countries. I would immediately be skeptical of anyone who is secretly recording arguments that they have started.
Correct.
With anybody.
Correct. Immediately be like, why,
And knowing it's audio, he very well could have been sitting there slapping the
Yeah.
crap out of himself because it's going to sound like she's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I was not a fan of the prosecutor in this movie either.
No.
He was. If we were giving out douche canoes for movies, he would definitely get it. A distraught Daniel insists on testifying before closing arguments the following Monday. The judge lays strict ground rules to prevent anyone from influencing Daniel's testimony and brings in a court monitor, Marge. Daniel then asks that Sandra leave their house for the weekend so he can be alone with Marge and Snoop. He recalls that when Samuel overdosed, Snoop also fell sick, possibly due to having eaten Samuel's vomit. As you do.
Mm-hmm.
He then deliberately feeds Snoop aspirin and finds it has the same effect, which aligns with Saunders' testimony. This kid's a little psychopath.
Psychopath or smart, Chris?
Yeah, well, a lot of psychopaths are smart.
So that's a valid point, very valid point.
He tried to kill his dog. Daniel confides to Marge his anguish, and she advises him if he doesn't know what's really true, he can instead decide what's true for him. Not sure it works that way.
Yeah, it does not work that way.
On the witness stand, Daniel says he can comprehend his father taking his own life, but not the murder scenario. He reveals when he and Samuel were driving Snoop to the veterinarian, Samuel spoke about the need to be prepared that those he loves will die and to know his life will go on, which Daniel now interprets as his father's own suicidal thoughts. Sandra is acquitted after Daniel's testimony, and she returns home. Daniel tells her he was afraid of her homecoming, and she says that she was too. The two embrace. As Sandra heads to bed, she lingers at a photo of her and Samuel before falling asleep with Snoop. Which is weird that Snoop would go sleep with her since he's Daniel's service dog.
That's...
I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's the end of the film. There's a lot to talk. This film raises a ton more questions than it answers.
Correct. And I don't know if that was the purpose of it.
I don't know that it was either. She is acquitted. But we don't know for sure if she's innocent.
Right.
We never see the husband before, so we don't know. We don't know if he did jump. We don't know what interactions there could have been there. For all we know, the son went up to the attic before he went out with the dog and pushed. The guy could have been laying dead on the ground the whole time.
Right. That
the interviewer was there. The music turns on, but that could have been the son.
Right.
I
like to think that he killed himself, and mainly because, like, you bring up a good point. He was recording all of these interactions and things,
right.
Audio, not even video or anything like that. And he had the conversation with Daniel on that car ride, saying, people are going to die, people are close to die, and you will move on. I'm just like, but I think that's how the film's supposed to do, is make your own decision what really happened.
Yeah, I just feel like they leave a lot of other, basically, most films like this would leave a trail of breadcrumbs, right? So you would get those breadcrumbs along the way where you can kind of figure out the basics of the story on your own without them having to give it to you. But here it's like someone went behind them and picked up all the breadcrumbs, and you're just like, I have no idea what's going on.
And most movies will tell you what happened at the end sometimes, and or at least tell you or give you like a very strong hint. This is what happened. And you can make your own answer, but I'm like,
It's a strange way that they did it. And it didn't really, I don't feel like, for me, it didn't help the movie. It hurt it. The other thing is we keep going from, some of the characters will speak English with one another and others will speak French.
Mm-hmm.
So you go from not having to read subtitles to all of a sudden, oh crap, I got to read these subtitles and so I know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then back again. And it's this constant flip-flop. Pick one.
I agree. It's just one of those films. I didn't really enjoy it. To me, this is one of our weaker Oscar films. And especially for me, potentially this being my last 2023 Oscar film to watch, I was like, oh man, like I wish we would have left like the holdovers until like this point, because if the holdovers would have been at this point, I would have been like, that's my favorite one so far, even over Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
But I gave this 2.5 stars. I didn't really. I'm right there. It was a long. Like I feel like there's some points we could have cut out. I don't like that we really didn't get an answer to the end of it. And I mean, but the saving grace, Sandra Huller. I don't know how it was the German. How you pronounce it? Huller. She was great. Like she is a great actress, and I could see why she's up for these awards and things like that. Right. I just didn't. It's the same thing I kind of said with some of our other Oscar movies. I didn't really care about the story as much. And I don't know if that's just like a personal thing or what the reason of that is, but I was definitely intrigued for like the first 35 minutes of the film. After we saw the dead body, I was like, oh, we got something going on here. And I just felt like it just kind of fell off as we went on. But
yeah, I feel like it was, they ease you into that discovery of the body. They find the body, and then it's just this long, protracted, drawn out. I think if somehow the interviewer had been looped back in, or maybe she became a suspect, if the prosecutor was trying to say that there was already an affair going on.
Right.
And just something to kind of add to it, because it seemed very vanilla.
Mm-hmm.
And for a film like this with this subject matter, that's not what you want. It's a murder mystery.
Yes.
You want people to be, I was Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston should have showed up and been like,
at one point, hey,
we got this. Yeah. Or Enola Holmes or something.
Oh God.
Because it just, I don't know, it fell flat. It didn't. Yeah. I watched it from beginning to end. It was just by the end of it, I was like, all right, let's just wrap it up.
Yeah.
Get to the credits so that we can, because this isn't going to be a favorite. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars.
3.5.
I leaned 4, and then by the time the end got there, and I thought about it some more today, I was like, no, this was
your lowest Oscar film?
Everything else has been 4 or 4.5 for me.
Mm-hmm. I thought it wasn't your lowest, but then I realized that's The Flash. It's because I keep it count of it all.
This it would have been hard for this to have been as bad as The Flash.
Yeah, it's a Fernie movie at this point.
Now there is a chance that we could have an American Fiction review next week.
Yes. If anything, you will. But like we were talking about beforehand, it's popping up for you. But when I just tried searching it live, it would not pull up for me, which I'm like,
That's
I
weird.
don't know. I don't know how that happens.
That's weird. I'm actually gonna real quick here on my phone see if it'll pop up, because it's odd that it's not showing for you. As it pops up, it gives me the option.
Which is one that we, both of us want to see, which is why it sucks. Yeah. So,
it's
American Fiction.
It's available to buy right now for $14.99 on Apple TV.
I see. I don't even have the option to buy it. It's just so weird.
And it's short. It's only an hour and 56 minutes.
Oh, it's where it's supposed to be. So, Chris, do you want to tell them about what we're doing next week live on the show?
Live next week. Be here. Well, that doesn't rhyme. I can't do that. I was going to say be here or be square, but it kind of loses all meaning when it doesn't rhyme with. Anyway. We're going to come on the show. If we have an American Fiction review, we'll do that. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be live. And then after that review, we're going to go over our Oscar picks. We're in a fantasy league, a fantasy Oscar league. We're going to go over our Oscar picks. And will wrap up in time for the actual award show. So
I'm excited. Second Oscars for me, and with some good films that I'm excited to watch them win. Now, I am coming off of the SAG-AFTRA Awards, or the SAG Awards,
yeah,
and all-timer. I don't want this to be full of commercials, but it's network television, so
yeah. So it will be.
yeah, unfortunately. I mean, at least you like the Super Bowl and jam pack it with new commercials for films coming out. I mean, it's supposed to be the biggest night in Hollywood, so
Yeah.
but that's just how I feel. So
No, I completely agree with you. I don't know if you watch online if you'll get the same amount of commercials or if they'll have like little interview clips and stuff like that. So I don't know how they do that. Releases this week, March the 8th. The masterpiece, Kung Fu Panda 4, is in cinemas.
good old Jack Black. Can't go wrong.
Jack Black, he hits on a lot of things that he does. So,
But man, I'm
Cool.
excited. Oscars next week, and then when is Invincible? It's not this week coming up, but pretty sure it's within this next week, right? Or that, so with that, blah, blah, Young Royals. Yeah, Thursday, March 14th. We finally get back to Invincible.
we can scale back to one movie a week and finish up Agent Carter.
We'll just keep doing 2 episodes of Agent Carter, and
But Invincible's not that long, right? 'Cause
I
it's
think
the back
4
half of-
episodes.
Yeah, so
It's so dumb, man. Oh man, what a decisions were made. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to the Nerdwide podcast this week. We really hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to all your favorite social media platforms. Subscribe to our YouTube. Subscribe to whatever podcasting service you do use. If you want to do more, you can always go to patreon.com/nerdwide. 3 different tiers, 3 different monthly annual rates. If you want to get the episode early, that's where you do it at. If you want to suggest, TV, movies, books, any of that kind of stuff for us to read, that's the place to do it as well. I have also been in contact with a lot of indie authors over on Threads. I got connected to a lot of them, and I am getting some advanced copies of their books. And I will be doing some, probably just like a little one-off, 5-10 minute book reviews, probably by myself just sitting here talking about the books. Whenever I get those done and read, things like that, kind of boost up our book stuff going on. Social media, go follow the Nerdwide account wherever you got social media at. You can always follow me on Threads, Chris on Threads, and kind of go from there. That's where we're most active at for the most part. But ladies and gentlemen, we really hope you enjoyed this episode of the week. Hopefully it's not our last Oscar movie review, but depends on what Apple TV Plus does. So
yeah.
But until then, we cannot wait to talk to you and do our live draft picks for the Bachelor Fantasy. Until then, have a good one.
No. For the Oscars.
What did I say?
The Bachelor Fantasy.
The Bachelor Fantasy. I do Bachelor Fantasy every week. Okay. Anyways, we will see you then for the Oscars draft picks.